It is with mingled feelings of regret and gratitude that we write 30. Regret for the breaking of ties with as fine a body of people as we ever hoped to associate with. Gratitude that the thread of everything we hold dear has been withdrawn and the urgent necessity to fashion weapons of death no longer exists. Now we can turn back to thoughts and plans for ultimate peace. Those of us who will continue to work and help make or do things that are constructive rather than destructive, things that make for people's comfort and happiness. There is a staggering amount of constructive work to be done both in material and a spiritual sense. Perhaps if all of us who form Scarborough's proud company take with us into our new spheres of endeavor the same spirit of loyalty, the same determination to safeguard the things we work so hard for in the plan, and the same benevolence toward one another, Scarborough will never die. The tradition outgrowth of the tragedy of war will live on, a vibrant, shining thing through the happier years of peace to come. Long live Scarborough! So, till we meet again, so long.
Thus, with those final words printed in the facilier, the gate to a magnificent wartime munitions plant, Geco, closed. In the final analysis, total production from the inception of Canada's most major shell-filling plant in July 41 until its demise in July 45, over 250 million units were prepared and shipped to the military overseas. This then was Geco's successful and admirable response to Winston Churchill's urgent plea for tools of war. As we should expect, most of Geco's former employees have passed on. But on this day, September 8, 2002, more than 61 years after that first group of employees clocked in at the spanking new Geco plant, we are honored to have with us several ladies and gentlemen who represent those thousands of once upon a time young and energetic workers. In their youth, they toiled diligently and faithfully for a most worthwhile cause. For those plant workers who are able, please stand while we give you a long round of overdue applause of appreciation. Oh, sorry, I was tapping the microphone, I was so excited. Thank you, and on to Michael.
Here then ends the story of Canada's most successful contributions to the Empire during World War II. But the name Geco and the original complex remained, although for the moment deserted. Late in 1945, the entire complex was cleaned up and desensitized. That is to say, tons of deadly powder residues were removed and destroyed by burning. Geco was then turned over to the War Assets Department of the federal government to be made available for citizen use. During the war years, quite unlike today, most families did not own their own homes in which they lived. At the war's end, there were thousands of such families across the nations who found themselves virtually homeless. This was due in part to the influx of thousands of returning soldiers and military personnel. It was rather a squeeze play, and something had to give. Across Toronto, several communities were set up to accommodate these floundering families. Most notable among these communities were Long Branch, Stanley Barracks, and in particular in the heart of Toronto, behind Old Maple Leaf Gardens, Little Norway, at the foot of Bathurst Street. There may be some of you in the audience today who resided in Old Little Norway, who were frequent visitors to Geco. Could we please ask you to show your hands? We welcome you. In the spring of 1946, a cluster of the former Geco munitions buildings were renovated and ready to receive the first group of those families who desperately needed emergency housing. It would be a harsh uprooting for all those first Geco families. Tracy's father, who aged 11 at the time, was among that initial group. With his parents, 3 sisters, and 2 brothers, he moved from the west end of Toronto directly into Geco Building number 3. The Getty family, who many of you here today will remember, had also moved into the same building only weeks earlier. Years later, one of the sons, Don Getty, would become a famous Edmonton Eskimo quarterback, Minister of Energy for Alberta, and then the Premier of Alberta. By the end of the summer, 1946, Geco had its first two-room schoolhouse, the former medical building for the Geco plant, which would soon be known as the Yellow School because of its creamy yellow exterior. In September 1946, 13 rather nervous kids were called to class for the first time in this strange and isolated place, Geco, out in the boondocks of Scarborough, and Tracy's father was among them. By the end of the following year, 1947, 11 separate buildings relegated for emergency wartime housing were now fully occupied. Some 2,000 citizens all sharing the same fate, as it were. This Embers banquet hall that we're in today is one of those original family-occupied buildings. By January 1948, Geco had a total of 4 individual schoolhouses within the community. Visually, the original yellow, the Yellow School, the Green School, the Gray School, and the Catholic School. Geco was now a fully inhabited, autonomous community replete with its own fire hall, a modest grocery store called the Blind Man's, a post office, and 2 adjoining very large recreation halls with such activities as weekly dances, floor hockey, boxing, wrestling, chess tournaments, cards, and so on. Conveniently left behind from the days of the ammunition plants were a few baseball diamonds in the vast empty fields on the north side of Eglinton, and these would see plenty of use. At this time in 1948, there were 3, in particular, enterprising farms in operation which had survived the government's expropriation process 6 years earlier. Tom Hayes Farm on the east side of Warden Avenue, 1/4 mile north of Eglinton. Atkinson's Farm at the northwest corner of Birchmount and Eglinton. And McGregor's beautiful farm and orchards on the east side of Birchmount, just south of Eglinton. I have trouble picturing all these farms when I drive down here myself. Although essentially a pig-raising farm, McGregor's farm was particularly noted for its lush Montmorency cherry tree orchards, black and red currants, gooseberries, and raspberries. Many Gecoites in the audience today will have earned a few coins at McGregor's picking berries and cherries there during the summer months. To be sure, Tracy's father did. These 3 farms were wonderful playgrounds for many of the children of Geco. Within comfortable walking distance from the community was Clay Banks, which was alternately called Bare Ass Beach because of its accessible skinny dippers. This very popular swimming hole was located on the east branch of the Don River in the area today of the Don Valley Parkway in Eglinton. Because Geco was out in the sticks and far removed from any police force, they formed their own governing law and order body known as Geco Old Boys, a few members of whom had been frontline soldiers and officers in Europe during World War II. They were the elected police of Geco, responsible not only for the safekeeping of the citizens in the community, but also for organizing all formal sports and recreational functions within the community. It was now a thriving, rather self-sufficient, close-knit community with citizens from many backgrounds who pooled their skills and talents to pull together to make the best of things. Tracy's father has told me that for him there was never a lack of things to do in Geco. There was always some fun event underway, such as floor hockey, baseball, quoits, horseshoes, organized dances, outdoor sing-alongs and amateur nights under the stars, dog races at Hayes Farm north of the community, hay rides offered by local farmers, and a horse riding stable called 3 Gates on Warden Avenue, just south of where the Embers restaurant now stands. On April 29, 1947, Geco's post office had opened for business. On April 29, 1954, exactly 7 years to the day, it had permanently closed. The last remaining families began moving out, and this once unique and thriving community of Geco ceased to exist. Back in the 40s, and really not all that long ago, this was a very rural and rustic area. Eglinton Avenue was a 2-lane hard dirt road with few vehicles and with farmers hauling their hay atop horse-drawn wagons. Today, in 2002, this is one of the busiest and most commercial areas of Scarborough. If Hitler had not started World War II and Winston Churchill had not made that urgent plea for tools of war, then no doubt Geco would never have existed, nor this building we're in today. Could we please have a show of hands for all those who lived in the former community of Geco, and their children if they're here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please revel in your memories and enjoy this historic reunion Thank you very much.